Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another show of Goal Lounge. This is the Cool Down, and today we have Wangadenga, Lolo Kale. We've got an Arsenal representative, a United representative, and who else? The Liverpool representative. I'd like to say the traditional big guns before the money invaded the league. That's kind of where we're at, guys. What's up? How's things going?
No, we're all good. I've got my customary Devil's Peak beer here. I'm all good.
Yeah.
Hey.
International break over. At least now we can go back to the Prem.
Yes, I'm so happy about it.
But it's still odd, but you could get one of the big players getting injured today or tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Just pray that your key player. Okay, at least Aubameyang, your key player, he played yesterday, even though they lost. He's probably flying back. But the European guys, the South Americans, are playing tomorrow morning.
Yes, I think from a Liverpool perspective, it pretty much got as bad as it could get for us. So
Yeah,
I don't know, Wonga, you hanging
can't
on
get any
there.
worse. It can't get worse. I don't see.
Yeah.
Maybe the worst thing that can
Again,
happen
man.
is Klopp maybe sprains his ankle and he can't play and he can't be there at the sessions or something.
No, don't
I
say
don't
that.
know.
Don't say that.
Or
I
it's
feel
not
like
like-
That's the worst thing.
Yeah, man, I feel like everyone is talking about how Liverpool don't suffer any injuries, and now all of a sudden, like, well, okay, Universe has heard you, and now we're just going to make sure that happens and see if they can come out of this alive, which is not okay for everyone else. But on that note, guys, the first topic that we're going to be discussing today, because we had no Premier League games to cover, we're going to look at the international report based on what has happened already. And yes, the topic that we need to discuss and look into are the injuries and the COVID situation. All these players that have gone away, like we said, and they've come back with injuries or they've been infected by COVID. Wonga, what do you think about this? I mean, we criticized how poorly the schedules were planned. Overall, do you think this is okay moving forward?
Yeah, look, I think for me, it's at the end of the day, I think it just must be done. You know, it's the soccer must. Well, life needs to continue, you know, and I think guys are just trying to find a way around this COVID situation because we can't just sit and wait. The livelihoods of people at the end of the day does matter, and also I think if you look at it in terms of soccer, I think many guys are itching to play, you know, and if they can, if there's like some sort of surety that you know what they can do it, then they must continue. But I mean, look, now you go and you do it, and then maybe Mo Salah. I mean, now he's got COVID. That's a good for other people, but not him.
But he got it while at his brother's wedding, man. That's how you got
Yeah.
COVID.
Okay, but Selo, as a man, not allowed to celebrate his brother's wedding. I don't understand.
No.
But was he?
No, listen.
Was
the
that
problem
not?
is
Yeah, carry on. Sorry. Yeah, carry on.
800 people at the wedding, and you see Mo Salah at the wedding, the best footballer in Egypt and arguably Africa is at the wedding. Apparently people were hugging and kissing him. Obviously, he got COVID, man.
They weren't kissing him, Brad.
They were
giving him the virus. Yes, they were gonna kiss. They were giving him the virus.
Claudio, I'm not saying he mustn't go. He must not go. I'm not saying he must not go to his brother's wedding. He must.
Yeah. Look.
But
it's just,
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's just unfortunate because I could also
that's
get
what I'm saying is that. Yeah, Selo, but see, that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, life must continue. You get what I'm saying? And people are just realizing that look, like if you look at the stats now, the virus, yes, many people have died, but in effect, it is. I mean, compared to any other virus, it's not really that bad if you think about it. The only problem is that they have no cure. If they look at it like that, they really have no cure. So I think people will be fine at the end of the day. They'll do the international breaks. I just think what's killed us is not the virus. I think what's killed us is the fact that we've actually done all these lockdowns and stopped, and now people are trying to catch up so that we don't so that we finish this season when it was supposed to be finished, and the other seasons don't get.
Okay,
I think that's the only thing that's killing everyone.
I hear what Wong is saying because you're trying to, like, for instance, these AFCON matches would have happened earlier, and then AFCON was supposed to be in 2021.
Yes,
it got postponed, and then what's this thing called? Nations League was supposed to be already done, and they were supposed to starting. I think it was going to start the World Cup qualifiers. Probably only next year. So. Yeah. You know, those things where now they're cramping games and stuff. But I do understand the fact that the injuries is something with the international break. That is
exactly, and that's what I wanted to mention. That's what I wanted to say. You've got Henderson out, you've got Sterling out, you've got Doherty out, you've got El Neni out. By the way, do you think El Neni went to the same wedding? I don't know, possible. Maybe he's like friends with the brother. I don't know, because like all these guys, my whole point about this whole scenario is from a product perspective as to what the Premier League has on offer. Currently, we're already restricted with the type of football we are watching because of how we've been impacted with the scenario and the current climate of things. Now they've forced the fact that they need to try and make international games somewhat appealing. They've taken the best players out, but now they're going back to the Premier League and they're not playing, which affects the game that we actually love watching, which is the Premier League. And that's the issue I have with this whole scenario.
No, true. No, I completely understand. It's rubbish, man, because you can just imagine like a team like Liverpool, Joe Gomez and Henderson and Robertson. So 3 players have gotten injured in this international break for Liverpool. And
Salah's come back with COVID. So it's 4 our first team.
No, I'm saying injuries. COVID. Let's just pocket a little side and say, Salah, you were waiting. You are the side. That's your fault.
No. It's a variable. You got to include it.
Man. But I'm saying the injuries are the ones that are obviously the ones that are bad. And then you look back at the Premier League. Premier League only has 3 subs. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. Yeah. It's taxing on the body for the players. You can't make the substitutions. Yeah. I saw Southgate coming out and saying that he wants to ask the Premier League to ask them to have 5 subs going forward, but it won't happen. Which is unfortunate. But they must revote again because players are going to be injured, guys.
Yeah, players are going to be injured. But let's talk about, if we're going focusing more on football, one thing I want to talk about from an international report currently what's happened, the whole Jack Grealish debate. There was a discussion as to whether or not he should be included in the England squad. And now all of a sudden the conversation has changed where the English fans are pretty much shouting for the fact that the team needs to be built around him. So what do we think about that? Is that something that they should do going forward, especially in the context of international football, where it's somewhat seemingly less about the philosophy and more about the reaction to your opponent to get the result, because it is tournament football?
No, man, listen. The touches that you had in that Belgium game, I only watched the first half, but then I went back to watch the highlights for the second half, and there was this touch that they passed him the ball, and he just clipped it over Munier, and then he just went. No, man, Jack Grealish is... He's arguably their top 3 player, and probably the player that's on form. I said he's the Premier League player of the season so far, and it looked like it in that match. He looked like the best player for England. And Harry Kane was okay. He was thereabouts. You know what I mean? But Jack Grealish took him out of Aston Villa, put him in a different team, and he just looked amazing. I think they definitely need to build their team around him, but also they need to change their formation, man. That's a big part. Their formation isn't ideal right now because the whole playing with a back 3, the wing backs. I think as England,
I think they should just change the manager. Really,
obviously, the manager must go. But with the talent that they have, when Sterling and Rashford come back, you want and Sterling to be playing, but you also want Grealish playing. So you could play Grealish as a number 10. And then Sterling on the right, and then Rashford on the left, and Kane up front. And then you can have either Declan Rice and Jordan Henderson, or a Mason Mount in the midfield, or a wings. You know what I mean? But then when you're now having the back 3 with the wing backs, you're taking away an attacking threat up front. You know what I mean? You still have Jadon Sancho on the bench. So I feel that they should change the formation, and Jack Grealish should be on the starting lineup.
I think, look, I definitely think Jack Grealish does deserve to start. But now when you're building around a player, I think we must now. I wouldn't be too sure now what does one mean when we say that. Like if I understand it right, if I look at something like Barcelona where they're playing, they build the team around Messi. So you're basically putting people around him that will basically complement the way he plays. I mean, so that the team can, so that the team can obviously, perform to their best. someone like, I mean, if I look at England, I don't see them doing that for one player. They've got a lot of talent in all positions. I think everyone knows that. Maybe the defense, the centre back positions are the ones that are questionable at the moment. But I think all around, I think they're pretty decent. Jack Grealish, I think, would fit in nicely to that thing, but I don't see them building a team around him. I think I do see them giving him freedom. I do see them giving him freedom on the field. You know, I think building. I'm not too sure what the exact definition would be to build a team around a player, but I'm 100% sure that building a team around Grealish is not what they'd want to do. I think yes, giving him his freedom to play, express himself would be the right thing to do, but not say like be the main man.
Yeah, and you know
everyone else must complement you.
That's kind of what I was alluding to, was the fact that when, you know, the English, they like reacting to things. You know, 1 minute, you know, Satan's around the corner, next thing the guy's the saint. Forget about Satan. My whole thing is that when you do kind of, guys, whose sound is that? There's making like a weird thing.
Yeah, it's Buck. It's not mine.
Or
hello.
What I was saying is the whole point is that hello. The whole point is that when you do start building your team around, you know, you become very dependent on the player gets injury, then you're pretty much screwed. But what I do like about a Grealish is that his preferred position, he's come out saying is that he's a number 8. He can play a number 10 if needs be. But for Villa, what we saw last season, despite not wanting to, he can on the left side as well as the number 6, which is pretty interesting. So for me, I don't know if it's a thing where there are a lot more players. I know your smart players are always very adaptable, and can play in multiple positions. But I also think it's something that's happening with regards to future football. If you're looking at guys, you need to be more fluid. It's almost like a futsal approach, that you need to be able to read the game in a certain way that players can just move into the open spaces. I mean, that's clearly what happens with Liverpool's front 3. So I think for Gareth Southgate, it is finding the important combination. Personally I think when they do Harry Kane up front, I think a lot hinges on his performance, and it's almost like the team take a step back and they're like, wow, we're waiting for Harry Kane to score. And if he doesn't score, we don't win. And I almost think when he doesn't play, they have more options and more guys have to step up to the plate.
But you see the interesting thing, right, is that last year, right, let me say not last year, maybe the last 18 months, right, where England actually made it to the Nations League, Final Four, right? They beat. So they were in the same group as Spain and Croatia, right? And they obliterated them. You know, they were top of the pool, and they had a front 3 of Sterling, Kane, and Rashford, and was terrorizing all defenses. You know what I mean? Where there was that whole thing with Kane, similar to how he does it at Tottenham, where Kane comes a bit deep to get the ball, and he would just play it wide to Sterling or Rashford, and their pace would just be too much for the defenders, and they would score the goals. So I think I don't know like why he went away from that type of play that did well for them to get them to the Nations League Final Four. Now he was playing with Mason Mount and Jack Grealish as the wide men, whereas these two guys don't even have that pace that Rashford or Sterling has. Then he's got Jadon Sancho on the bench, but doesn't start him. He could be utilizing his pace. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting that, you know, you were winning games, beating a Spain, beating a Croatia, but then now you drop you go away from what allowed you to win. You know, which is
for me, like just to add on Sila's point, I know it's going a bit off, but that I also agree with Sila on that thing in terms of people. Coaches, for me, that's the obvious thing. You've got something that's working. Liverpool did it for a whole season. It was solid. Next game, yes, we do it again. Next game, we do it again. You can't break it down. We do it again next game. I can't understand why Gareth Southgate would play those guys on the wing. It's like I always said, people when they're playing soccer, sometimes they're trying to play chess and guess the other guys' move and calculate that. You've got your team. Your best thing that's been working, the obvious things would have been there. Put your pace on the wings. And it worked so well for England. I mean, at times, if they do that, when they do that, like Silo says, they can beat anyone on their day.
Yeah, and Wonga, to that point, it's interesting because if you have players that can do the damage, then play to their strengths, because then there's no point reacting to an opposition sort of setup. But if you don't have those players, that's when studying the opposition and knowing how to counteract their strengths becomes super important. But before we move on from the international sort of section, one thing I think Celo should talk about are the Ramos penalty misses.
Oh, man. Oh, guys. Wow, man. That guy, I can't believe it. Like the first penalty, cool. He tries to take it and then he hits it to the left. Goalkeeper makes a good save, but it wasn't to the corner. It wasn't to the corner. It wasn't powerful enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the second one, he thinks he's clever. He drops it and then he stops and he looks at the goalkeeper and then he tries to do a Panenka. And then it doesn't even go up, guys. It goes about like this much from the ground. Like,
it wasn't a Panenka. It wasn't a Panenka. I saw it. And I even think Lookman could have taught him how not to do it.
He tried to go off the ground. And literally, the goalkeeper dived and the goalkeeper was already on the floor and he was just waiting for the ball to come into his hands and then just do this. And the look on Ramos's face. And that was in that match, guys, he was breaking the record as the most appearances for a European player. And he goes and does that.
He wanted to do it in style. Sergio Ramos wanted to do it in style. Even when you can see the guy's on a mission. No, the guy's on a mission. He wants to. I know he hasn't probably said it, but definitely he wants to finish as the top goal scoring defender, and he wants to make sure that lead is going to be there for 20 years or 30 years to come. He wanted to do it in style.
Not such a poor penalty, man. Like it was arrogant, and man, he deserved to miss. But I'm actually happy that he missed.
But the keeper charged him. You know, fair play to the keeper. He played mind games. He's like, listen here, bro. We know you're not smart. You're not a smart footballer. I'm gonna. That's kind of what he did there. Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
That was funny.
I like that we left off on that note because we know Ramos, by the way, being linked with the move to PSG at the end of the season, possibly on a free. So we'll see what happens there. But the next one I want to talk about involves Celo a lot, and also Wonga to a certain degree, is the topic of sporting directors at a football club. If we analyze the base, there was a table that recently came out. Wonga's busy puffing his cheeks because he knows this is going to be some hard questions that he needs to answer. If we're looking at the table from a net spend perspective, and you know a Liverpool fan loves talking about net spend only because we're on the better end of the side of the table, we've got Man United that have reached the billion mark in spending. And from a net spend perspective, they've spent £742 million. In terms of where they are at the moment, from having, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ed Woodward, and pretty much their status, do you think a sporting director would help a club like a United? By definition, a sporting director is someone, for those of you who don't know, who pretty much helps steer the ship, keep the philosophy. The manager isn't really the manager is crucial for getting results, but if the manager or players leave the club, there's still direction, and that's by definition. Celo, what do you think?
Man, we've been crying out for a sporting director since Fergie left, because when Fergie was still there, right? It was Fergie and David Gill. That was the combination of Man United. Simple, those guys just ran the ship properly. David Gill was quite a good football administrator, great at negotiating. And then Fergie, obviously, then there was obviously the scouting network within United. There were some good signings, obviously some bad signings. Not all the signings would be perfect, but still, generally, it led to a winning team. You know what I mean? Those signings that they made added to the team. Then Fergie left, and literally, cool, David Moyes comes in, right?
Yeah.
First one is David Moyes can't attract signings. He tried to sign... Oh man, guys, the list is long. Tony Kroos, Thiago Alcantara. You know what I mean? He there's all these names that were rumored to be that Man United were interested in that first season of David Moyes, and he didn't get them. Even an Ander Herrera, for instance, that was a rumor that we wanted Ander Herrera, and we didn't get him that season, and when we eventually got him, probably a season after that. But a sporting director would have helped in terms of that, because then last minute they signed a Fellaini, you know what I mean? Whereas that's not a player that you're trying to attract if you're looking for a Kroos or a Alcantara and a Herrera, and then you sign a Fellaini. So
I like the fact that you mentioned Fellaini, because Fellaini can be defined as pretty much United for the last 7 years. Fellaini's sort of players is the one that's carried. I mean, I think he made over 100 appearances, which is something crazy. But the reason why sporting directors is a necessary conversation centering around an Arsenal and a United is because if we're looking financially and we're looking in terms of how things have been spent, you've got an Arsenal that have spent something like, I think, third most in terms of the list, but they've only brought in, I think, a quarter of what they were spending. So they're very low on the list. So, and their sporting director situation is a bit of a shambles, similar to that of United. If we're comparing them to a Chelsea and we're comparing them to Liverpool, who in Chelsea at the moment, ironically enough, have Peter Cech as a sporting director in combination with Marina, how do you pronounce her name? Granovskia. They're doing fantastically well because they're loaning all their younger players and they're bringing that in as a source of income when they flog them. So their net spend's been fantastic. And Liverpool, the same thing with Michael Edwards, have completely dominated that sort of space. And they kind of transformed every other club across Europe in terms of how they should approach football, running a football club as a business. So the question begs to both of you again, where do you guys go from your clubs? Are you happy right now? What is the solution for you?
For me, I think if I look at I think Arsenal, they're also new to this sporting director role thing. I think the time when Wenger was there, they even asked him what is. I read it. I never heard him say it, but his response was, "What is a sporting director? Is it someone that is is it someone who stands on the road and directs the traffic?" That's what he was saying. That's what his comment on. Yeah, so that's what his comment on a sporting director. So obviously Wenger in that time thought that, look, it's obviously not. He doesn't feel that he needs it. But if you looked at that time I think I'm not sure about. They said in the US, but I know Germany. Every team at that time had a sporting director. If you look specifically like Dortmund as well, I think that Michael Zorc. Bayern Munich had Samuel Ahmedich. If I pronounced it correctly, maybe I got the L and the M confused, but yeah, somewhere there.
Guys, sorry to stop you, Wonga. We need to say so today we had Jason on, we've got Marcus here, and today we've got Nicholas Killas, my work associate, my football associate. Thank you, Nicholas, for joining.
Nicholas, how's it?
Sorry, as you were, Wonga, as you were.
Yeah. So, but looking at it, I think if I look at the way the Germans, the guys who've been doing it for a while, understand the director's role, they say that the managing director is someone that he's between the chairman and the coach. The coach continues his job. So the coach is basically literally the coach of that team, and the other teams are still there, and the other coaches are also coached by their team, and the sporting director overlooks all of that. So to him, even though yes, the biggest team there is the first team, but nonetheless, they're all teams that he has to look after. Obviously, they all have different importance. He looks after that. He's the one that develops the philosophy at the club. And I think even if you look at it at Dortmund, the most interesting thing is the one they have, the Michael Zorc, the one who's there still today. He's the same guy who brought in Jurgen Klopp from Liverpool. He's the same guy that brought in Ousmane Dembele. He's the same guy that brought in Robert Lewandowski. And now he's gone. Yeah, now he's gone, but the Dortmund is still Dortmund. And I think that's why the Germans have done it. They've seen that look, I can't now, because the managing role is now, it's a flimsy one. Tomorrow, if Selo plays hard enough, Ole will be gone. Tomorrow we could have Klopp gone as well. And the bad thing in that, for me, I think that's very important now as a sporting director, is that if that manager goes, he can't now take the whole club culture with him. And now you guys are screwed. You have to start from space one. I'm not too sure if you. Yeah, so that's for me the importance.
But also for every good sporting director, you get a rubbish one like Eric Abidal, who did rubbish at Barcelona. He's the one who oversaw the purchase of Ousmane Dembele, Philippe Coutinho, Griezmann. He's the one who did all these signings, right? And obviously would not let go, but it was under his watch and Sandro Rossetti. Sandro Rossetti. No, wait, but the president that just left now, it was under the two of them that the rubbish signings were happening. And that's the thing, is that for every good sporting director, you get a rubbish one as well. You
But
know what I mean?
to complete just to finish that point, is that for me, I just wanted to say that Arsenal, for me, they're still young. I think it's only what they're probably 3 years in it now, 4 years in it. I think they're 4. Hey, Scott.
Scotty with the best comments as usual. Marcus, I mean, I think yours aren't bad, but Scotty's always got like an underlining tone to his. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yes, I think so for Arsenal, they're still new they're still new in this role. And so I'd have to wait. I think I have to give Edu a chance to also prove himself as well. I think, but you can see, like, when you get a sporting director who's a certain nationality, also leans towards his nationality. You can see the Brazilians that are coming into Arsenal as well.
100%.
But I think only time will tell. I mean, with same thing with Ole, give him time as well. Arteta, give him time. Same thing.
Arsenal have a sporting director at least. Do you understand what I'm saying? At least they have a sporting director.
Well, the lines are still blurred there at Arsenal. They're still blurred. But yeah, sorry, Selo.
But at least he is there. You know what I mean? Edu is there.
Yes.
Obviously, the previous guy was that German guy that they had, who signed Aubameyang, whatever. And then obviously Edu's there. But at least they're trying to move in that direction. And then is Man United don't have the sporting director. Ed Wood is an investment banker. He's done amazingly well on the commercial side of things, but on the football side of things, he's done poorly, and that's where a sporting director would help in terms of running the football operations of the club, because you're the commercial side. Ed Woodward has done well, he's brought in, the sponsorships and everything, all of that, but you need someone who's that link between the coach and the person who's running the club from an administrative point of view. You know what I mean? So that is the problem. And obviously, as I was saying, is that at least Arsenal are trying to have an Edu, and they had the German guy before Edu, after Wenger, but Man United don't have anyone.
Yeah, but let's focus on some of the things that are happening at United, because guys, Nicholas, Marcus, they're saying things along with Scott. If we're looking and we're focusing on United at this moment in time, if we focus on this last transfer window that has happened, there has been a bit of a notice in terms of where Edward has, the United guys taking a bit of a seat back, and he's actually letting other guys come to the forefront, because there's another guy currently in the role who's stepping up. And if we are focusing on what Ole is currently doing, I suppose the legacy in which he is leaving behind, which somewhat cannot be compared to the previous guys in the David Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, is that he has brought in more youngsters, which is somewhat, you could say, okay, that's a better way to go about it.
But the thing is, those people aren't his signings, eh? That's the thing. Those are not Ole signings. Those are the club signings. Ahmed Diallo is a player that Man United has been watching for quite a number of years, since he's been with Atalanta. So it's not Ole signing. Ole wanted Jadon Sancho, and then these guys, obviously, they signed a Pelestri from Uruguay. He was playing under Diego Forlan in Uruguay, and then they signed Ahmed Diallo, who was the best under 18 in the Primavera League, which is basically the Serie A of under 18s. He was the best player in that league. So it's not Solskjaer signings, but yes, the signings that Solskjaer has made, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, a Maguire, these first team signings that he has made, those are signings where he's kind of brought in guys who are in the, let's say, early to mid 20s, which is good, because it's something that the other guys weren't doing. You know what I mean? You look at a player, you look at a person like Van Gaal. Van Gaal just wanted to sign these stars, and then also Mourinho also wanted to sign these stars. So Solskjaer, I'll give him that credit and say he signed a Maguire mid 20s, even though it was overpriced, but he signed a person in the mid 20s, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka early 20s. Okay, Donny van der Beek also early 20s. You know what I mean? Those players that are signings where they can do well for Man United going forward. It's just also another part where they are lacking is the selling part. You know what I mean? Yeah. You need to sell players to make money, right? And you still have a Phil Jones on your books and a Marcos Rojo. That is rubbish.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
So for the sporting director, he must definitely he must know football. You can't have a sporting director who doesn't know football. You can't do that.
Well,
or someone
here's
who's
the
in
thing.
the transfers. Yeah.
So if you take Michael Edwards from Liverpool perspective, he had a bit of a footballing background integrated with business, and this is why it's flourishing. It's also taken a manager like Klopp who is open to the ideas of working with the sporting director. I think the big key here is when you're looking at what Scott has mentioned, if we're taking PSG as an example, they've got a sporting director, but they haven't delivered on the Champions League yet. They've won everything else in France because, let's be face it, they're playing against toddlers in that league. But when you're taking that into consideration, I think there's one thing that has to be highlighted is that moving from traditional sort of football game in terms of where we came from, where we saw Roy Keane coming in with scissor tackles and it was okay, to kind of how the modern game has transpired in terms of like this new shape of understanding in terms of you've got the football aspect that still needs to be focused on. But football in itself, because it's become so global, the business aspect is just as crucial to maintain the success on the pitch, unfortunately, in terms of bringing in the function and the revenue. So if you've got someone who understands that side and you can work with someone, be open to the idea as a manager, then it does make your life easier. And we've seen that with the club. The thing is with United is there's still this like power struggle. They're holding on to what their cultural background is, where Ferguson has left such a legacy. The expectation is that whoever steps in needs to maintain the club as it was, as opposed to being open to the new idea. The funny thing about all of this is Patrice Evra came out saying, I think a couple of months ago, a week ago, I can't even remember, him saying during the transfer window, he was getting a phone call from a sporting director of another club just to get a hold of their main guy at United to make a transfer happen, which is bizarre. Why are they phoning Patrice Evra? Because they can't get a hold of a Man United director. I don't understand that.
That is very funny.
I just want to touch on what Nicholas is saying here. It's one of the strategies that Man United have now adopted. Obviously, Nicholas has just mentioned the players that we've signed. We signed a left back from Real Madrid. We signed a right back from Barcelona, and we signed a striker from Atletico Madrid. We signed another striker from Tromsø in the first division in Norway. And then we signed a Sunderland striker. We signed a Man City striker as well. But that strategy now, right? It's the strategy where Chelsea have been doing for years, right? Chelsea signed all these amazing youngsters, right, from all over Europe, and then they come into the development, and Chelsea just bosses the FA Youth Cup. They've probably won probably 3 out of the last 5 years. They lost to Man City though this year, and they were in the final. Now Man United has adopted that strategy, right, where they've been taking a pummeling from Man City and Chelsea, because Chelsea and Man City have these strategies. And what happens with these youngsters is that they have a chance of making it to the first team, or you can sell them for a good price when they get to the age of 21, because they actually are good, and you loan them out at the age of about 19 or 20. So Man United has now moved away from the strategy that they had previously, where they probably mostly had only British youngsters on their books, and actually getting all these European kids. They even signed the French under-16 captain from I think it is. I forgot what his name is, but they signed the French under-16 captain. So they're doing the strategy that Chelsea and Man City have been doing for the last 3 years, hoping that obviously some of them can actually break through, but then the ones that don't break through can be sold.
Yeah,
but that's the point, I suppose, that we're trying to make here when we're looking at a sporting director is, should a manager realistically take this on board when he's coming in to deliver results? Because let's be honest, football manager now, his job is, the stakes are a lot higher. He can't afford, he's not given 4-5 games to have a bad run because he loses his job. So if you've got someone in place who is maintaining the ship, who is giving a philosophy out there, who is focused on the strategy and long-term incomings from a financial point of view, it does somewhat ease the pressure off a manager. A lot of great comments coming in here, guys. I'm loving it. Don't be afraid to talk to each other, which I'm seeing is happening with Nicholas and Marcus. A bit of a bromance going. Scott, you might want to get in there. I think there might be a new relationship budding. Wonga, one thing I want to ask you is, when we're looking at bringing in players and now this new strategy, what I read today was Dembele as a possible target for United and an Arsenal. Now, when we're looking at all of this in terms of where both clubs are at, hypothetically speaking, which one is still more attractive for a player like Dembele to go to, if any of them are?
Yes,
I shoot to my next meeting, but it's crazy time of the year, man. But Dembele should come to Man United. What's he going to do at Arsenal? He doesn't want to be in the Europa League. Cheers.
Cheers,
guys. I'll catch up with you soon.
And we're talking about relegation candidates just now, so you guys can ease off bantering each other, because that's coming both your ways.
Oh wow!
Well, I suppose just your way, because Celo has taken a sneaky exit.
Yeah. Dude, Dembele, sure. I mean, I look at the guy, jeez, I think everyone looks at him, and you're like, what? We talk about the same Dembele, the one at Barcelona, right?
Yeah, of course.
Dembele, he's a left foot, right foot, long range, speed. He's got it all in him for a winger. Can take you on 1v1. And just you watch him play, and obviously any player would have that in his team. I don't care what reason you want to tell me, I would want that guy in my team, 100%. If it means my 72 million Pepe must sit on the bench, then he must sit on the bench.
Well, he's already sitting on the bench, though. That's the problem you have.
Okay.
I think.
That's the problem as well. And you see, that's now also links up to like your. This goes on to now agents and sporting directors. Also, they now look at all of this stuff and have to now decide what's the best fit for this guy. But someone like Dembele obviously is not going to be. He's not going to be having second fiddle, especially if he's going to leave Barcelona. He's going to be wanting to get first team place. So, and probably at the moment, I think he could start in the Arsenal team, 100% left or the right. He could start in Arsenal right now.
Yeah,
I think he would be very helpful.
Yeah, but one of the issues, and Scott mentioned this, I love that he mentioned this, because one of the issues I find anyway is that he's got a terrible reputation for his professionalism. And apart from that, if we've got to take that into consideration, so it's going to need a strong man manager. Both, I don't think Ole can handle, or an Arteta at this moment in time. Maybe a season from now. But the other thing is he's very, very injury prone. So you're going to be spending, the outlay is going to be hefty for a player that has the talent, but might only be playing like 30% of your game. So is it worth it in the long term?
Yeah, long term. If you consider that as well. Yeah, that's one thing I did forget. Long term, I personally wouldn't take that risk. You're gonna have the guy for a good season, maybe. He's been at Barcelona for how many years now? I don't think he's really played a whole season out till the end. And if he did, everyone knows. I mean, he would be brilliant in a team. But yeah, his attitude I've heard is a big problem. I think the one day he said he was late for training because playing PlayStation at Barcelona. Jeez, and Barcelona still. They just punished him, I think, and they try and rectify the problem. I was like, wow. It's definitely we're in a different time and people are becoming more understanding. I think back in the days, Dembele right now would be at home with his parents, looking for a job, maybe studying right now. Because back in the day, they would not have taken that nonsense. They said, this guy is not for us. He's someone else's problem. Take him away. But now in soccer, they're trying to really, really, really make use of the potential in the player. But I still think Dembele would be a waste. I don't think he'll get rid of that problem with his attitude. I think
he's kind of killed his career a little bit. Look, the opportunities clearly got a good agent, because these opportunities seem to be rumored. They seem to be around the corner for him. One thing I'll never forget is we watched the game when Barcelona came out here to Soccer City to play a friendly against Sundowns. And I'll never forget him having his D-squared cap on. Everyone's come out in the Barcelona kit after the game, getting their little award ceremony. And he comes out with his D-squared cap, and Suarez and Messi like hit his cap off his head and like start chirping him, saying, "What the hell are you doing?" And then he got all sad. And I was just like, dude, you don't do that. It filters down to the bottom. And the fact that he can't even wear like your proper uniform begs to like a whole bigger issue. But one thing, Wonga, something that really excites you, and I think the next topic we need to be discussing is video analysis and where that plays a role within football and currently how it's being implemented. And more importantly, the difference of the implementation locally here in South Africa versus globally, and how and why it should and would be a success if applied correctly. So I know I threw a lot of things at you, but in terms of your overall understanding, what do you think about this?
Yeah, look, video analysis it's basically, if people, I'm pretty sure you all know what it is, but basically I'll just say it is basically the guys looking at, they're using videos to help teach the players on errors or try to help them expose. Yeah, but it's basically just basically using video to teach, video from the past to teach people now, so they don't, so they correct what they're going to do in the future. I think that's a good way to put it. And I think in obviously, if you say local, we are years behind. I think more than 10. We're definitely a decade behind. More than a decade behind. Teams overseas are using them with the development squads. They're using them. Grassroots. They're using a development, not just not just with their first teams. But I mean, you see it with the first teams. You know, every person now is having a video analysis guy next to them. I think Germany did come out with that when they took which World Cup was it? Was it no, not 06, that's too far back. I think it was 2016, where they Germany took where they thrashed what's his name? Brazil 8-0. And people are, getting on the fact that, hey, look, Germany actually just played. The news came out that these guys they looked at the way Brazil played, they analyzed it, they found a few weaknesses, and they literally played to what they were made to do, and what they were coached to do, and they managed to punish them. But yeah, in Germany, they've got a long extensive way of using it, and it's developing like crazy. The stuff they're using now, I've never seen in my life. And if I look at some of the stuff they're doing in 2010, I still haven't seen some of that stuff now. So yeah, we're far behind on that front. But if you look at, I think locally, I know, and I maybe some video, and maybe now it's changed. But I remember when I first did my first course in. Not my first one. I think it was my C license. I had some videos. Some guys were doing video analysis at other clubs. I'm not too sure if there were just. I think there was one guy I know that came from a certain club, and I think there was a second guy who was there. But they were saying that, look, their job, they love it, they do it, they give insights. But there's a problem when the insight is passed on to the coach. Is that
and the players,
sometimes. Yeah, and the players. It's just that some people they don't buy into what the guy is saying, or in fact, the coach sometimes just cancels them out immediately, and that's where they have the problem. Is that they're there and they're working, but that was years ago, so it might change now. I think people are probably still trying to accept it now, because if it's working there in Europe for 10 years, it's definitely going to work. It means it's definitely working. So yeah, I think there's just a bit of I think we're still going through an early phase of it this side. But that's why I say we definitely 15 years.
You know what's interesting about that is that a lot of the analytics that's being created, it's again we talk about it, it's these sort of these guys that love data, the guys that know how to find the data, and they come up with the software and they do these things. So the issue is you have the football guys, like you spoke about, the managers and the players. They're somewhat opposed to this because, one, it's a bit of homework. Two, it kind of undermines their overall authority. And three, it's just it's a little bit more work. And I like the fact that Marcus mentions Bielsa as an example, because that is how like your football analysis can play to an advantage of a side if you are open to it, and more importantly, you know how to use the data that you're wanting to collect. There's something different saying here's data. Then there's two in terms of interpreting the data, and then three, there's the application of the data. And also when you find yourself in a situation where you have a player and you're telling the player as a coach going, hey man, you need to be doing this. You probably be like 2 meters too far up the pitch, and the player goes, no, I'm perfect. When you do have some sort of video footage, it's validation to the coach to show the player, who then can see pretty much what he needs to do. And when they were talking about implementing the analytics, one of the key things that these guys have said is that for football, and for coaches and for players, it is huge that they are able to see the video footage apart from just graphs and numbers. Because when they see the graphs and numbers, their minds aren't inclined that way. So as soon as you can show them, then it's a huge different for the level of processing.
Yes, I think even in the coaching courses, they'll teach you however you do it, but you have to, when a player has made a mistake, you have to show him what was the error, and then you have to now correct what the error was. Do you get what I'm saying? And in that sense, you're right. Is that now when you're showing the guy, you're like, no, you've done it like this, you're doing this and this, and he's thinking in his head, no, this guy's talking cock. I mean, well, nowadays you're gonna get that with the kid. The kid's always nowadays the kids are smarter than you. Like, nah, that's how he does it. Then you show him. No, I mean, I know you need the money and stuff to do it, but what I'm trying to put in is it definitely does help a player, especially when they can't and they can't understand what you're doing. It does make things a bit easier that you're looking at it from a view that you're not seeing. You know, you're seeing it from his view, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what he wants, and then you're able to give the guy exactly what he wants. But now saying that, now Claudio, that assumption can't be made now. Is that, and that's where Gavin. I remember we read an article where Gavin Hunt was saying that video analysis is overrated.
That's so for those of you, Scott, who don't know who Gavin Hunt is, that is currently he's Kaizer Chiefs head coach, and he's come out recently saying that video analysis is overrated. Continue, Wonga.
Yeah. So just to be also, I went and I said, look, you can't. I mean, that's not right. You can't say that. You know, definitely is not overrated. But then I read further into what he said. Obviously, they read the headlines. They write the stuff so people can read. And that's what I did. I opened the headline, and he said his reasoning was, yes, you could get the video, and I think he agrees with that. That look, the videos can be used to see where the team strengths are, where the weaknesses are, where and spot all those things that you want to spot. But he says now, I think his problem now is actually, how do you say? It's actually utilizing all that data that you guys got. And in terms of the players, he says now you've got one thing, like, okay, now you know they're weak down the left-hand side. Let's say we must switch the ball that side as quickly as we can. But if the players don't do or can't do what you need them to do to expose those threats, it's pointless. And that I can't argue with him. So then that now becomes a coaching thing and development, you know. Yeah.
And you know what? That's an issue we face here generally within our football development as it is. I think the standard of education generally within the country is pretty low. So as soon as you offer our local players the opportunity to go through whatever documentation or data it is in order to improve their game, one, it's hard for them to grasp. Two, they don't have the right professionalism. And then three, it just seems like a little bit more work for them, so they don't go into it. I remember personally speaking when Jason, I don't know if Jason's still watching, but when we were playing Varsity Cup and he came up with a video analysis and they gave us back the feedback for me as a player, I thought it was incredible because I knew exactly what I had to expect from the opposing player or the opponent I had to face that game. I knew exactly in terms of what I was doing correctly and what I wasn't doing, positioning on the field. Look, naturally, I knew where to be on the field. I mean, but it was good validation in terms of having the communication with the other guys. I mean, the amount of depth these guys are going into. One of the examples are from if a coach wants to focus on improving the positioning from a throw-in, they'll get these guys to create algorithms to just then focus on the footage that they receive to focus on throw-ins and highlight the positioning in terms of where players should be and whether or not they are there. And that's the fascinating thing behind all of this, which is the part that really excites me. Scott says video analysis courses in Scotland now have, which I've completed. Well done, Scott. That's incredible. You need to give us feedback on that sometime soon. Some of the people 100%. That were on the course were next level data. Yeah. And I mean, Hoffenheim are a great example. I think Red Bull, another great example. They've literally got a room dedicated to touchscreens, dedicated to identifying the amount of kilometers the players have run. It's just, and whatever, again, I suppose data is only as useful as the answer you are looking for in terms of the questions that you are posing, which is super cool. So the next thing we want to talk about, Wonga, and this is something that brings us back to the Premier League, are relegation candidates. Who are your relegation candidates? I know we've been speaking a lot about what's going to happen in terms of the push for the title, but now we need to look into the guys that are pretty much going to go down.
Yeah, down. I don't like dooming teams, but if I look at the bottom four right now, I think, the teams above them, if I look at, I mean, all of them, look at your Wolves, there's a lot of teams that actually can cause problems and take points from teams. And I think Newcastle throwing one there at
at Nick. We do want to mention Newcastle. We do want to mention them. Yeah, sorry, Wonga. You're saying.
I mean, look, you've got to, if you want to get out the relegation zone, it's a scrappy business, and you've got to be picking up points. So if I look at the teams that are there now, at the current state. If they carry on like this, it's obviously not doom and gloom. It's early in the season, but if they carry on like this, definitely I'm seeing what's I wrote it down because I couldn't remember. It was West Brom, Burnley, Sheffield, and if you look at the way they've been playing as well, collecting points for them has been difficult. They're hitting losses, conceding goals, not scoring goals. Sure, and for me, the thing there is it's not that they're conceding or scoring less goals. They're not collecting points. They could draw and collect a point, but they're not collecting points. They could have collected 7, if they had draws flat out, but they're losing. They're not collecting the points, and I think that's very, very. It's a bad start. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, and I suppose the biggest thing for all these clubs that tend to find themselves at the bottom are the fact that they aren't scoring goals. That's the biggest issue for them. At least when you're looking at a Brighton, you're looking at Fulham. I mean, Brighton at least have scored 11 goals currently. From Fulham onwards, or downwards rather, they've scored 7 goals. After that, it's 6 goals, 3 goals, 4 goals. So Brighton by themselves are creating chances. They've scored nearly double the amount of goals, which means somewhat they might have their defensive frailties, but at least they can get the ball in the back of the net. The other guys currently, I think that's the biggest issue when you're looking at a relegation candidate. You got Mitrovic for Fulham, who's meant to be somewhat of a saving grace because he's got the experience and the know-how in terms of playing in the Premier League. The issue is around him, he doesn't really have that. If we're looking at a Burnley, they would want that takeover to happen sooner rather than later because currently they've got no options up front. They've got no, and for the side, all they've got to do is be organized and structured. But if you don't have anyone putting a ball in the back of the net, you're pretty much fucked, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. But like again, I also don't think Fulham and Brighton are far away from it. Just like you say, they're in a better position. But those other teams, the nice thing now is that they do have time. It's a nice topic to talk about. I think at the end of the day, they still do have a bit of time to fix what their problems. Their problems, it'll have to be a quick fix. I mean, now they're trying to survive. They want to make sure that next year they're in the Premier League. So they just need whatever. If it's a quick fix, whatever, they must get it. They must take it if they do not want to get relegated.
Yeah, and I think Sheffield is a really interesting team to be talking about, rather because if you're looking in terms of how they performed last season, they they punched above their weight. They played a certain style, they were good on the eye, they were attractive, they were organized. Now they're currently in a situation where they don't know which front players to be playing. They've spent a bit of money on a Brewster, untested in the Premier League, a young player with a lot of potential. Do I think that was the right move for him? Personally, I don't. I think there's a lot for the man to do, or the boy rather, to be doing at a club like that. But when you're looking at them, he also doesn't know right now who his best combination is. He's got Mac Goldrick, who scored 2 goals, but ironically, the 2 goals that he has scored has been in the 2 games in which he's played 90 minutes. The rest of the other games he's featured in, he's been either taken off or he's been brought on, which tells me there isn't sort of like a conviction in terms of how they want to approach the game when they're moving forward, which is a big, big issue. Obviously, Wonga.
Like that. Even that Malholdrick, I forgot these names, but I watched the 2 games that he played, and someone like that, maybe there's different reason why he doesn't start him, but someone like that, he should be starting. He shouldn't be it's a no-brainer. I mean, I don't really watch Sheffield United, but I mean, someone like that, I think definitely he's got a chance to be starting in all the squad. And I think I watched the one he played against, was it Chelsea? Can't remember. But nonetheless, like you say, he should be starting all the time. And now you've got the stats that tell you that, look, this guy's I put him on 90 minutes and we're scoring. So why don't we just once, let's see what happens. Yeah, let's stick with it. That's what the stats are telling us. Let's see if it will continue. I think in their position, it's not a bad gamble. It's not a bad gamble. At this point in time, they need to. Like I said, they're scrapping for points, and I think they just use anything that they have.
Yeah, and do we dare throw Leeds in the same conversation? I know they've got a mastermind in Bielsa. We know that they're a well-drilled team, but Nick has pointed this out, Mr. T-Rex arms. I don't know if you noticed that in Scott's comment. He put a little T-Rex next to the Newcastle. Anyway,
that's what it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was a plant. I'm like, why is he putting a leaf next to
it? It was a baby T-Rex. It was a baby T-Rex. Anyway, if we're looking at a Leeds, and what Nick said previously is that the intensity at which they are playing currently Can they sustain that throughout the course of the season? It's a tough ask when you're playing against these teams that have bigger squads. So would they be able to keep that up? Or I mean, if one of these teams hits a bad run, which is what the bottom three are currently hitting, I mean, it's 6 games without a win for the 3 bottom sides. I think Fulham got lucky with one of the wins in which they had, and they could have possibly gotten a draw through West Ham. But at Leeds United, will we see them fighting or scrapping at the bottom there?
No, I also had a bit of doubt with Nick's beliefs in the beginning. Rikwanga. So I also had a bit of doubt about Leeds in the beginning, but I remember Nick was very confident with how they perform, and they've come out. But Nick wasn't saying that. Nick was saying that they'd actually get into trouble with the way they play. I remember he said that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's tested out. They're actually working for them, and I think yes, in the long run, that's the question you do ask. But then you also look at now Liverpool, who've just been smashed by the international break and COVID.
Yeah.
And the other teams have probably got a couple of things in there. Leeds, I don't know how many people Leeds have taken to international duty. I think there's probably those one, but I think Leeds that have that in their favor, and I don't think they're involved in too many cups as well. So they could see themselves. I mean, lost. I mean, especially now we've only got 3 subs as well. Other guys have only got 5. Teams are playing in 4 different cups. Yeah, I think Leeds still do have something on their side. I don't see them. Honestly, I don't see them even touching close to bottom.
Well, that's pretty bold. Do you think they're going to be all right? I mean, technically,
I think they'll be all right.
I mean, technically, then you're also saying, I mean, Man United currently on the same amount of points as Leeds. Arsenal only 2 points above the others. West Ham and Newcastle. I'm actually pretty sad that Nick and Rich aren't here, because this would have been a great conversation to have with them. I would have loved to hear Scott telling Nick where to stick it. But Newcastle and West Ham, the only thing they have for them is their performances are inconsistent enough, and they are a bit of a yo-yo side in terms of going up and down. But they do have a bit more quality than the guys at the bottom. And Marcus has said it perfectly. He said West Brom and Fulham. Out of the bottom 3 that you mentioned, Wonga, you've got West Brom, Burnley, and Sheffield. If you throw Fulham in the mix there, which one do you think survives?
Who survives out of the 4?
I think Brighton make it. I think they make it just purely on the players that they have. I think a guy like Lallana is going to help them through with the experience. Yep.
Sheffield at the bottom, but I see
1 point. 1 point at the bottom. Come on now.
1 point.
They're struggling there, boy.
They're struggling, but I watched them play, Claudio. There was some, but that's the thing. Yeah, no, it's just glimpse and glimpse, but the question is consistency. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if I take those 5, if I say West Brom, Burnley, Sheffield, Fulham, Brighton, Brighton come out and I would just say based on past experience, but then they definitely need to make some changes there during this transfer window. Is Burnley.
So if they get the injection of cash.
Yeah, if they can get that right, they're definitely out of that. So Brighton and Burnley out of that for me. But I think at the end of the day, I think it'll just be those teams. Based on how they've been playing.
Burnley times 2, boy. Burnley, their first team and their second team are getting relegated according to Scott, which would make sense on paper, I suppose.
I didn't realize that. Nah, I think they make it out. I think they make it out. But I think one thing I don't want to damn them, but I think those 5 are there the whole season. They are scrapping and they're fighting. The other guys on top, I looked at them. I just don't see them. I see them picking out points here and there during the season, and that's important to stay afloat. But the other ones, I see them struggling. I think that's easy pickings, You got your Leicester, Man City. But again, there's COVID.
Those are exciting topics for us to talk about on pretty much Muti. Yeah. So I think Wonga, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been absolutely fun. I agree with the sentiment that Burnley. is going to get relegated. So I'm siding with Scott. I feel like they've got the Stoke vibe about them. They've been there for a long time. They haven't changed too much. They've stuck with the same sort of principle, and I think they're going to come short now because they haven't kept up with the time. So that's pretty much my final sentiment. Fulham are definitely going down. I don't think they're good enough. And I think Brighton will survive. Sheffield are the interesting one for me. If they can, like you said, they've been good in games. They've been very good in games. It's just that they've been unlucky. But for me, January is going to be important for all these sides. They're going to have to bring someone who can hit the ground running, who's going to hit the back of the net. That's what they need. And that's the only way these guys are going to survive.
But Sheffield also, the opponents they've played have actually been, I think they've played they've played many of the top 6. Oh, well, I don't even know what to call them anymore. Many of the stronger teams, let's say it like that. Some of the teams they played, they've all over the, but let's say that they played many of the stronger teams and they flat bottom. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. It's the Premier League after all.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday for pre-match Muti. If you haven't liked, if you haven't subscribed, go do that. And also, if you want to be part of our Discord community, just drop an email. You'll see my email address down at the bottom. We'll send you the link, and then you can enjoy or take part in the banter that we are busy having currently on the Discord channel. So feel free to do that, and we'll see you guys on Thursday, same time. Thank you very much, guys. Wonga, last words?
Now last words. Arsenal top 4. Check you guys.